One, two, three. You're very welcome to the Irish Political Roundup with me, Paul Brophy, and we're delighted to be joined by our good friend here on the Irish Political Roundup, uh, former Fine Gael councillor for County Kilkenny, Patrick O'Neill. Of course, Patrick was a former Fine Gael candidate in 2020 general election in Clr, Kilkenny. Patrick, you're very welcome to the Irish Political Roundup.
Evening, Paul. Thanks for having me again. Happy to be here.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. Matt, as well as you were a county councillor for well over 10 years. You also work in finance, but you're also working in farming as well. And you work as a beef farmer, which is very, very different to what that is of a dairy farmer. So how have the last couple of months been from beef farmers point of view?
Sure, look, they've been great for the first time in my life. They've been great. Yeah, look, the price is fantastic at the moment. I'd say for the first time in a long time, we're above the European average. I think we're 10% above the European average on price at the moment. And yeah, look, I was at a farm walk last night down in Thomastown. Good friend of mine, Peter Hanner, there. He's a fantastic farm built there in a calf to beef enterprise, and they were just looking at beef animals and talking about beef prices. And it wasn't too long ago that the base price was about €3.60 a kilo. And
360.
like that's where it was. Like at the moment, you're looking at a base price of 760. So like
Nice. So it
with
is
a
it's
lot.
nearly doubled.
Oh, it's nearly doubled, and you're looking, a lot of people with certain spec animals will probably hit €8 a kilo. It probably won't go much higher. It might start to slip back a little bit over the next couple of months, but it should still stay well over the €7 mark you would expect. Basically the reason for it is just there's a big shortage of beef across the globe, and like
Right.
that's due to many factors, a lot of them political, a lot of them environmental factors, areas in the world facing drought, areas where, certain diseases like blue tongue are causing issues for exports.
Mm.
So Ireland is one that hasn't been locked up with blue tongue. So there's a lot of exporters coming here buying beef. So look, there's many different reasons for it, but look, the beef farmers, I suppose, are due their turn, and long may it last.
Yeah, and we've spoken before here in the Irish political roundup that beef farming is very, very different to dairy farming because dairy you always have like a turnover, whereas beef farming could, could be
Mhm.
money before you sell a cow or a calf.
Yeah, like normally we wouldn't be selling cattle at this time of year, but the price has been so good recently that I actually did let off 18 animals there into the mart 2 weeks ago, and look, got really, really, really good money for them compared to what they would have made the year before. And that's for the first time in a long time being, you have that extra money that you're able to get ahead of maybe certain bills that are coming in before the winter that would, everything will be clear. It'll just give you a little bit of financial security, and you feel a lot more comfortable going into a winter period where costs are higher. Yes, look, it's been really, really good. And yeah, look, for the first time in a long time, beef farmers might worry about a big tax bill. So you'll see a lot of beef guys with new machineries or all sorts of things maybe coming in the next few weeks and months to maybe lessen the tax burden that's maybe due to them. But it's look, it's yeah, really positive things for beef. But look, it there I suppose there's knock-on effects to it as well. Like
Yeah,
obviously that price hasn't really been pushed onto the consumer yet, from what I can see. But in time that may happen. Like it probably goes to show, maybe as we've discussed before, what the factories and supermarkets, the profits that they've been
yeah,
making behind the scenes, and maybe it's eating into their. They probably know they can't charge more, so it's eating into their bottom line. But that may change, and they may start putting it back on the consumer. But it just shows like what a lot of global political decisions have been making towards farming all over the globe. And I did say this before, I'm pretty sure on this, that the way we're going to cause a shortage, and it is going to reflect then in price. Because when something becomes scarce, it goes up in money.
yeah,
And that's what's happening with beef at the end of the day.
yeah. So as you said, you haven't seen prices being passed on to the consumer yet, but um, that could all very well happen happen in time. And that was the whole Mercosur agreement. So for our viewers who might be familiar with that, that is it's the EU trade deal with South American countries of Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, and beef is a big bone of contention within that deal has that is currently been it's pretty much more or less agreed. It's just getting the final approval at European level. But a lot of beef farmers here in Ireland are very concerned about it.
Hmm. Look, Mercosur has been going, I think, close to 30 years as a trade agreement and still hasn't got over the line. And it comes up every year. I'm not sure if it will even get over the line this time. Look, I'm all for trade agreements. I've in principle, like I don't like, I wouldn't, I don't have an issue with bringing in beef from other parts of the world in a trade agreement that's fair and equitable to everyone. But I suppose the main issue from a beef farmer perspective with what they're talking about is like, particularly in Ireland, I can only really speak of Ireland and maybe a little bit in the UK and the knowledge there, but like the standards and what Irish beef farmers, the levels that they have to keep up and what they have to do with their animal management, husbandry, how they look after their animals, the environmental aspect, everything that we do, the highest, literally the highest quality and red tape that we go through to do what we do. And those same rules and regulations are not out there from in South America. So, the EU will make its own farmers literally jump through hoops, but will then take in what 70, 80,000 ton of beef that's of not produced to the same quality,
Mm.
the same ethical standards, maybe in some way, shape, or form, if that's the right wording, and
Yeah,
environmentally to the same environmental standards as what we produce here. So it is hypocritical, really, of the EU to even consider that. But look, there's other powers at play here behind the scenes that the car industries in particular are probably struggling a little bit with the change over to electric cars, and South America is probably a big market for some of that. And look, there's there's movers and shakers behind the scenes here, and
yeah,
where look, the governments of each country are not really going to have don't have a say in this. At the end of the day, we can kick and scream and we can give out all we want, but we're not the power brokers at the end of the day here. It's going to be at an EU level and the Commission level and see what plays out. But look, it hasn't ever been signed to date. Still doubtful that it will. Um, what the effect, if it is signed, what the effect will be on Irish farmers, it's
yeah,
hard to say. Like, I suppose the one advantage you would hope that the Irish beef product will have is the quality that it is. Like, it is like 90% of our beef is
yeah.
exported all over the world. Like, we're not
Oh,
keeping a lot.
it's the best around.
Yeah, we're not keeping a lot of the Irish beef within the EU anyway, to a certain degree. Well, obviously we are exporting to other countries in the EU. That's probably a stupid thing to say, but it's um it's been brought in from a quality perspective, and that market shouldn't change for, you would hope, for South American beef. That's not going to be looked at as the same standard as regards green image,
Mm.
husbandry, everything that goes along partner with Irish beef. So look, it's scary. It could potentially cause huge damage, but there is potential that it may not affect Irish beef because it just wouldn't hold a candle to what Irish beef is at the end of the day. But look, anytime you bring in extra, you flood a market with product, it can affect price, and you just don't know. But look, I know the 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 farm organizations are all up in arms against it, and I think they're
Yeah,
right to go. And I think, look, if it can be avoided at all, it's better for everyone not to have to even worry about it. But if it happens, I still think we'll
mm.
get through it, and I think we'll come out the right side of it from an Irish perspective. Maybe there's other parts of the EU that might suffer more from a product, but I'd be hopeful that Irish beef would stand out on its own anyway, and still have markets that should keep the price a premium, you know?
But it is crazy though, that you potentially are going to potentially flood like Europe with close to there's already about 200,000 tons of South American beef coming into the European Union. So you're going to have extra, potentially another 90,000 more. And that is going to have an impact. Now, within the legislation, within this deal, there is an emergency brake that states can impose tariffs if they think it's going to have a knock-on effect on
Yeah.
onto the beef industry. But from what I've been reading, a lot of people are not convinced that that's that's going to do it. And the fact that they've set aside about 6.3 billion for of a kind of a crisis fund, you know, that will
Yeah.
tell you that it is going to have a knock-on impact.
Yeah, look, there's no doubt. Like it's look, the main issue with it really is the hypocritical nature of the whole thing from an EU perspective. Like they can't wait to hit us with more rules and regulations to make life harder to produce beef, milk, or whatever it may be. The minute they're literally sitting there at the moment, probably waiting to slap us with some other mad daft rule that's going to just make which is why there's a short like they've went after dairy farmers for various different reasons for the last number of years. And now you're seeing a drop in cow numbers, which is leading to a drop in calf numbers, which is leading to a drop in beef numbers. And exporters are coming to Ireland and they're buying all our calves, they're buying all the cattle, they're all going out of the country, a lot of them. Like so in 2 years' time at the moment, there's going to be less animals slaughtered in Ireland next year and the year after, I would safely say, which is going to cause the price to be you would hope to be on a good side from a beef farmer perspective. Now, farmers may think of getting back into suckler cows now, the fact that the price is good, but that'll take 2, 3, 4 years for that to kind of to roll back around to maybe level starting to grow. So it's a really, really interesting time as to what way it's all going to go. But like there's generational renewal issues within farming all across the EU. Like it's not easy. Like I see it,
No.
I just see it myself now in the last couple of years as I've been more hands-on and involved. Like it's so many different like they've literally just diluted what was one big lump sum payment that farmers used to get
Yeah.
to produce their food into now all these little micro schemes of like all these little rules and stipulations. And look, they're also farmers are doing anyway, but they just worded it differently and like added little extra things in. And like it's just a bit madness really. And like the Department of Agriculture cannot keep up with it. They're going around in circles there and they don't have the staff, they don't have the systems to keep up with getting all these payments out, getting them approved. Like I've had issues with payments being delayed for close to a year. Like
Wow.
you'd ring them and yeah, look, I feel sorry for them to be honest. They're dealing with like the bureaucracy that's behind the scenes there is just crazy.
And
But it's
people don't, and people probably don't realize how important those payments are because, as you said before, as a beef farmer, you could go months without selling any cows. So it's those payments that keep the show on the road.
For the majority of beef and tillage farmers, that payment was literally probably if you could hold on to that payment, if you could break even on the production and that your payment then that payment from the EU was going to be your kind of profit for the year. That was the target for most beef and tillage farmers probably for a long time. Now this year in beef, you're going to have a good year. You're going to make money probably the first time in God knows how long. Um, like it's just yeah. Look, the it's like old school education systems where it's like it's batter the people and the students with like just force it upon them without like instead of actually bringing people along with you with sensible ideas that farmers know anyway and are willing to do, but you just turn them away from it with all the box ticking exercise that go along with it, or like the ridiculousness of some of what they're asking you to do. Like you can see it now. I've said this many a
Mm.
time. What we're doing is we're
Yeah,
going to create less food. We're going to cause food shortages, which in turn is going to lead, like eventually it will lead to serious issues in certain countries, and it'll become, the highest bidder will get the food in their country, and there'll be certain countries that will have issues on the back of it, and it's you know
yeah.
while
And
while
there's an
we all
impact on us as consumers because there's certain foods that you need to eat, for your health and things like that. And if there's going to be shortages of them, you're going to have less,
and while
of
we
that
all want to
food.
do
And
our
that's gonna have impact on people's health.
Yeah, well, we all want to do our bit for the environment and everything that goes along with it. Like, but Ireland as a country can produce beef, milk, and whatever else it can at in the most sustainable way, more so than any other country. And when you're seeing countries like Ireland having to reduce production because of rules around environment, and other countries that are just don't care about the environmental laws or open production, like it doesn't really make any sense towards the actual overall goal of the climate agenda. And
Mm.
like we have a lot of people here in Ireland who are environmentalists and they're look very good people and they're passionate about what they do, but geez, they really have it in for Irish farming when in reality Irish farming is one of the best products that's out there from like at the end of the day the world needs food and
Oh
Ireland
yeah,
can produce food in the most sustainable way. And look, there's no point in saying there is issues caused by agriculture within Ireland, and we have to do our bit to improve these, and we are doing our bit to improve it. But there's a lot of stuff going on in the environment that is caused by other areas, and farming kind of gets all the rap for
yeah,
it. So it's like you know, yeah, it can be frustrating at times, but like climate change is a global issue, not just an Ireland issue. And if other countries are thrown, not caring,
yeah, yeah.
we're really just shooting ourselves in the foot here and not helping the long-term global food um project like for the developing countries that are going to need this food into the future but look,
And
I'm just a former councillor and farmer. Like I
yeah,
don't, nobody really listens to me, but it can really drive you insane sometimes. What with
and
some
of
of the stuff.
course your colleague Martin Hayden is currently he's current minister
Yeah.
for agriculture. He's in place over 200, well over 200 days. Um, how would you assess his performance in that portfolio at the moment? Is there kind
Well,
of more to do?
the one, as I think about it, I haven't heard anyone give out about him yet anyway, which for a Minister for Agriculture is an amazing achievement to date because look, farmers we love to look they're vocal as an as a group and and because policy change really matters to farmers, any policy change can affect
Massively, yeah.
farmers directly. So they are a big lobby group and are not afraid to say their piece. But I haven't heard any dissatisfaction around the place with Martin Hayden at the moment. But look, that will probably budget time in the next couple of weeks, and this Mercosur
Yeah,
stuff, if it kind of
exactly, yeah.
kicks off, is going to be the litmus test for him. I suppose he's had a bit, probably coming out of the honeymoon period now, so we'll reserve judgment until maybe early next year to see how things have panned out.
And
But I'd
back to
have
you,
confidence in him. I've
sorry,
known Martin personally for a number of years, and
he was a
I think
junior minister in the
yeah,
Department of Agriculture.
I think he's extremely capable and will do a very good job. So I'm confident he'll keep up the start he's made, and I'm sure he'll see Ireland through any difficulties over the next coming weeks and months that are required from an agricultural perspective.
And Pat, you said you did a farm walk in Thomastown, which is in County Kilkenny, here in the Republic of Ireland. Excuse me. Um, what what kind of things did you see there that kind of, impressed you? And I suppose a lot of them would be kind of measures that can help farmers, particularly around the whole environmental side of things. Very practical things.
Yeah. Well, look, it's really around like I'd be trying to work a similar system here at home as to what was going on that farm. Let's say, well, I'd still have my suckler cows, but like I try and buy about 70 or 80 dairy calves every year and try and rear them for beef going forward. So I'm kind of getting back. Like this is probably the first year I'd have large numbers maybe to see how I go. But like that farm, it's very much focused on grass production. So
Yeah.
it's getting good soil fertility, which is important from an environmental perspective. And when the soil is fertile and a good reseeding program over a period, liming the soil to keep the pH right. Once the pH is right in the soil, you can grow grass for fun in the right conditions. And like, that farm is growing crazy amounts of grass every year. The cattle, like I was really happy with my calves of a similar age this year. I thought they were doing really well, and I went down there and saw his calves. Mine didn't really hold a candle to. He shows the
Well said. Let's say.
well, like, but fed with grass. Like I'm currently
Yeah.
here, like, I have a lot of reseeding to like. I want to get to where his farm has got to, and I have a basically I came out of it last night going I have to start work on a reseeding program here over the next number of years to get the soil fertility right, get the grass growing as it should be, because at the moment I'd be feeding a lot of meal at grass to calves and to keep them going, and that's costly. He doesn't have to do that as he has plenty of grass ahead of him to keep them fed, and like it's all. very environmentally friendly way of farming. Grass is the cheapest feed you'll ever get for your
Oh,
animals,
yeah.
and if you can get a good system in place to be able to grow it and keep on top of it, it's really the way forward.
That's probably why Irish food exports, be it our beef, our milk, everything, because all our calves and cows, they're grass fed in the majority, and
Hmm.
that obviously uh,
Yeah,
lead to a top class product, and it's very environmentally sustainable as well.
yeah. Like, and the thing is, like, it's minimizing, the it's natural. It's like the impact on the environment is a lot less, and it's just the animals are much happier, and there's
Yeah,
less. They're not handled, they're and I suppose because from an environmental perspective, you know, I suppose the average maybe slaughter age in Ireland is probably about 30 months for an animal. In his system, he's starting out as 23 months. Like the goal, I think,
okay,
for the goal for Chagas, I think, is like to have an average of 26 months, I think, for slaughter across the industry. To be and the less, if you can produce animals and get them to wait that bit quicker, it's
mm,
better for, there's obviously not going to be, they're not, it's terrible to say, but they're not going to be alive for an extra 5, 6, 7 months,
okay,
releasing carbon, methane, whatever it may be into the
yeah, yeah,
environment.
yeah,
And that's really a goal of the agriculture industry, to improve the breeding quality of the animals, that they're efficient, their feed conversion rate is good, and then
yeah,
that the soil conditions are right, that the grass can people can grow grass in an efficient manner
mm,
to feed the animals without having to feed lots of concentrates, which you know are costly and are going to bring different elements to the soils, etc. So look, it's basically like a biodiversity kind of cycle. It's trying to produce your animals a certain way that the life cycle of the soil is all part and parcel of that as well. And it's
yeah.
it's really really interesting, and it's the way it's where I hope to get to as well. But I'm probably about
But
5 years away from getting to that level.
it does go to show, like, that there's farmers like yourself and your colleague down in Thomastown, they're doing so much, and there's so much regulation and um protocols that they have to follow. And you know, I think our farm organizations, they're calling this. There's a lot of green hypocrisy at the moment, uh, because if you're going to be bringing in, say, South American beef, we don't know the standards that they are being produced to. Um, it really is a smack in the face to Irish farmers who have been working so hard, to you know play
Yeah.
their part, but and then they decide to import all these hundreds of thousands tons of beef. It's it's totally contradictory.
Oh, like that's if you were to just describe it in one word, contradictory is the whole thing. Like it's just and it doesn't seem to get any better from an EU perspective. It's like I don't know what it is, but like it's and this is why who we elect is extremely important. And I think we've kind of got a little careless, I think, to a certain extent with certain elements of how we elect, what we've elected, and kind of maybe what we've thought was important as a people, and even more so in the EU. Like we do tend to elect maybe more extremes to certain parts of the EU Parliament, as maybe we don't think it's actually that important, but in reality, it has a huge importance from an agricultural perspective. Because at the end of the day, actually, the EU is governing Irish farming. At the end of the day, in
Yeah,
reality, that's where the money is coming from. And the EU has been slashing agricultural budgets for the last 15, 20 years. Like it has been taking it to, taking it from the farming budget, giving it to environmental budgets and God knows what else. And it looks like it's continuing to do so.
yeah.
And
There's talks of cap
yeah,
being put in with other
yeah.
budgets as well. So that's a for concern as well.
So the EU is just not and hasn't been on the side of agriculture for a long, long time. And it just, I kind of find it hard to see, like, it's all well and good to be, having social justice and all sorts of liberal kind of thoughts and stuff of how we can, save the world, etc., etc. But like the fundamentals of life are always going to be the same, and
Yeah.
they're the pillars
We'll all
that
have to eat.
we like
Yeah.
we they need to be protected,
Mm.
and and it's not an easy lifestyle. Like even that farm last night, like doing it perfectly. It's not making a whole lot of money. Like the figures were there in the boards, like as a profit margin per hectare. Like it wasn't anything. Like you're not going to be going buying big fancy cars or whatever on the back of it. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot of work for, and they're doing well. Like for as farming, like it shows like they're doing it perfectly. Now within reason, like there's bits they would still obviously like to improve, but still not, it's not eye-watering money that they're making every year. And all the labor and all the hours they put in every day. And this year, obviously, you're going to have a really good year in the middle of it all this year. But you could be back to square one then the following year where beef prices drop back or costs rise in something, diesel costs or feed costs, something could jump up on the back of something, and you're back to square one again. Like calf prices are going to go through the roof. Like so that system where he's buying calves and I buy calves, like what's happening is the beef shortage is exporters are coming into Ireland paying crazy money for calves. Farmers are not going to be able to buy the calves because they can't compete with the prices. And what's happening is farmers, if they do buy the calves, are going to pay stupid money for them, keep them for 2 years, and not knowing what the price is going to be. So if the beef price drops €2 a kilo in 2 years, that farmer is going to make a huge loss on those animals. So it's a you need a crystal ball, which unfortunately you don't have.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose how this Mercosur deal is going to play out in the European Parliament and how it's going to play out here in Ireland is going to be something that we're all going to have to keep an eye on, be it farmers or consumers. And Pat, I suppose another issue that you have been very, very vocal on here in the Irish political roundup is water and our water infrastructure. Um, it did a program with myself and Ken O'Flynn, and some of both yourselves and Deputy Ken O'Flynn's um, insights were quite stark, quite stark. That now I know in the recent National Development Plan from 2026 to 2030, 12.2 billion has been allocated to Irish Water for investment in our water infrastructure. Do you think that is going to be enough to cover what's needed? Because it's hope that this investment would help uh, deliver 300,000 homes by 2030.
Well, we're now 2025, dream on, I would say, to be honest. Not a nearly end of 2025, not a chance with a planning system that we have in the country, not a chance. Um, you know, like it's really it's really really difficult because in one side you want people to be able to have genuine objections and concerns about certain projects, and like 12 billion given to Irish Water, if they got to spend half of it in the next 4 years, it'd be an absolute miracle because everything's going to get held up in planning processes, court process, from there then to courts to God knows what else. And like, yeah, look, it it's like I've seen it as a counselor. Like it's it's really difficult because you're put in a scenario where if you put your logical thinking hat on and think along, like if you look long term for the betterment of your county that you're representing, and look to the future, you would. And if, let's say, you were the only 24 people that lived in this county and there was no one else that mattered, you would
Yeah,
all day long vote through all the stuff that's proposed. You wouldn't have an issue. But then obviously the political game comes into it of something's going on in a certain village and it's going to upset certain populations, and
yeah,
you know everyone has to, politicians want to
not in,
survive, so they
not in
have.
my backyard.
Yeah, yeah, like it's really difficult, and I struggle a lot of times with a lot of stuff over the years where your head would tell you, like your heart would tell you this is the right thing to vote through, and your head is like, well,
Yeah,
if I do this, why am I the sacrificial lamb to slaughter here to bring all this negative press on top of you? But like you're elected though to be a strong voice, and to, like, I do think there's probably a silent majority out there that would probably love to see a government and their politicians take the bull by the horns to a certain extent. Like, not that I'm a fan of him, but like Trump is in America, where it's like, I'm going to sort this whether you like it or not,
yeah, yeah.
you love it or lump it. Like, we're all our politicians across government and across the opposition are they're absolute their bums must be sore from sitting on the fence on everything. Like there's
Mm.
no conviction in any political party at the moment on anything. And I think as a people we kind of like we've had it really good as a country, I suppose, for maybe 20, 30 years. Like
Yeah,
obviously we had 4 or 5 years in the middle there where things went bad, but like we came out of it quite well and things are going reasonably well economically. But look, obviously housing is a huge, huge problem. But we're not going to solve housing without solving water. And
yeah,
uh, we didn't want water charges. The whole country like went bananas there for a period over water charges. And my personal opinion is that it was a bad decision as a people not to, within reason, support some form of charge within water infrastructure because we need a constant fund to keep at this and get boots on the ground and get water development improved across the country and to be able to achieve the goals of the growing population that we have to support the younger people who want to get on the property ladder, to keep the businesses that are here in the country and maybe want to develop and expand and like it's
yeah.
all has knock-on effects. And we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot within reason.
Do you think Irish water was sold badly to
Oh,
the people
100%. Yeah, the whole thing was again
because
lacked conviction. And I think, look, I'd obviously know Phil Hogan well and I'd be a good friend of his and would be a big supporter of his. And like I think, look, Phil said a few things he probably should have said a lot better, but I think he didn't get enough. He probably didn't get a whole lot of backup behind the scenes to really sell this properly either. And there was lots of people kind of sitting on the fence and saying,
yeah,
talking about both sides of their mouth, and it gave the whole thing oxygen. And then it became like madness. It was just I remember the time it was crazy what was going on. And then but like I was running in a local election at that time, my first local election, and I was canvassing in rural areas mostly. Wasn't an issue in within reason. Like all those people were paying for water through their own wells as was or whatever, and they had to drill a well because they couldn't connect to the
yeah.
mains water because there was no supply. So they didn't. They would all happily have paid within a reasonable amount for water if they were able to get it from the main supply. Like it was just part and parcel of their life. But yeah, look, it was handled really, really badly. There's no point in saying otherwise. But I think the long-term consequences for the country, like we're already way behind on what we need to do from a housing perspective. We're not going to get out of that cycle unless
Yeah.
we get serious about water. And
And the
look, you can look,
big,
you can tell me I'm God knows what for saying it, but we need as a people to get serious about it and consider contributing through each household to help move this along and maybe look at things that are maybe going on in our backyards and maybe not being so anti some of these developments that are maybe being proposed. And look, I suppose
and
people aren't really probably objecting to water developments because they're all underground, but even housing developments on the back of that. In certain areas, people don't want houses built near them, and it's really, really it's a minefield, and that goes back to our planning laws. Then, like completely all over the shop, too completely inconsistent, too easy for people to kind of to really drag things along. The whole it can take developers like why would you do it? Like it could take you 5 years from planning going in to go by the time you get through the courts and maybe you mightn't even get approval. Like why would you even go through that hardship?
then you have developers. I believe some of the sums of money they're being charged just to get connected to the water mains by Irish Water, because these connection charges are a source of income for Irish Water, are meant to be absolutely crazy. And I think for a domestic uh, dwelling, you could be paying in excess of €5,000 for just to get a water connection. So it just goes to show the madness within the system. You made a good point there, Pat, about our current political system, be it the government or opposition. You know, sitting on the fence, a lack of conviction. Do you say that's probably why there is probably you're a former councillor, and you ran for the Dáil as well. Do you think that's reason that lack of conviction is part of some of the reason why there's kind of a disconnect between politics between people and politics in this country at the minute.
Well, I think so, and I think politicians have been are too concerned with saving their own bacon every 5 years than actually looking towards the long-term goals here. And I think if a political party got serious about their what's needed in this country and actually put actual plans in place that would actually achieve like we've had all these development plans and all these fancy things that are going on here for years of how what we want to do like having no even underground in Dublin, having no train out of the airport is absolutely insane in this day and age in my thought process for the money that's been in this country for so long. Like how these things haven't happened like is crazy, and it's countries with far less money can achieve all these things, and we're still kind of
Yeah,
our capital city is still backwards in that regard. It's like, and there's an element of it too. Like social media has become a big influence in politics. People are very scared to put their head above the parapet and kind of say certain things because of the backlash that it brings. Like there is targeted groups out there that literally will blindly criticize politicians just to suit their own agenda. And it's amazing how much traction that can get within the public, and people don't maybe fact check a lot of what they see, and that is a problem within the global political scene. You know, but like political parties just need to actually grow up here and do what they're supposed to do. Like if you're in for 5 years and you've achieved some positive things, and like I don't really overly like the Green Party from their policy perspective, but they come in and they do what they say they're going to do within reason, and kind of they get things kind of in line for what they want. Whereas other parties are kind of they'll say certain things in one election, they'll drag it through, take 3 or 4 years for anything to even maybe they might do a review or do something, and it'll
yeah.
take years, and then there's nothing done. There's another election, and then there's another bloody review, and costs of change. And if you look at the children's hospital, like how the hell like that, like if that was in the private
It's the most
world, like
expensive hospital in the world when it's open.
and look, it'll be the best thing in the world when it's opened. It'll be
Oh,
fantastic, but
it'd
like
be a great
the
addition.
whole rigmarole around it has been absolutely insane. And like we have somehow allowed the developer and the builder to kind of to run the show here without any kind of consequence by the looks of it, is what I can see. And look, and I know it's extremely high tech stuff, and I'm sure look prices and costs do fluctuate, and they're not complete. I'm sure they're within reason. A lot of stuff they're saying and doing, and delays have been reasonable, but like there has to be a better way of doing these things. Like government, you see the issues within the OPW, the costs like we've been turning a blind eye to kind of crazy spending for a long time. And if we got more efficient, it's amazing what
Yeah,
we could do.
like
And I think
like
people would respect
I give you that. Roisin and I, we were in Mullavat and we were talking to Jenny Castellatri, and there's a US investor who wants to invest in the area, and he even and one of the issues that is impacting the investment is water infrastructure, and the same investor actually offered to Kilkenny County Council to build a water treatment plant, but that was knocked on its head. So like that just will go to show you that you have somebody who's there willing to make the investment, put in
that.
the infrastructure, and they're just getting knocked back, whether it's council being dictated by Irish Water or whatever. Um, it does go to show, are we kind of like we're not really great at thinking outside the box.
Well, like Ireland is a unique country, and we have a way of living, and a lot of it there is a rural way of life and there's an urban way of life, and the rural way of life in Ireland is somewhat unique. We may have neighbor, your nearest neighbor might be a mile away from you in rural Ireland, but there's great
Oh, yes.
community spirit there, and we're making it so hard for people to live in rural areas because there's of some thought process that it's going to be bad for the environment to have someone living so far away from services, and it's going to cause them to have to drive and this and the other. But like, why not? Like there's been services in rural areas for years and
Okay.
years. There's doctors, there's pharmacies, there's pubs,
Yeah.
there's shops. They're all there, but they're all going to close because the people are gone.
Yeah.
Nobody can live there anymore. And so it's like support these smaller towns and villages, give them what they need to keep the population steady, and don't be making forcing the young people to not be able to build on their own land,
Yeah,
madness. Like not have the infrastructure for a small group housing development, which could
yeah,
make a small village thrive, and keep the renewal, generation renewal there. Like it's just
yeah,
it's simple things, like, and it just does. It seems to be like that. What like I think political advisors are have a lot to say in this, and what people, what who politicians look at as their advisors. Like they don't look at real people who have real experience in these areas. They look at guys maybe who have these PhDs and masters in certain areas who maybe haven't lived these lives, who haven't lived like you're going to get the best advice from people who have lived these lives and live in these
very
areas.
true, very true.
And like, what's happening is people with no life experience or no idea what's going on in the world in general at all are coming into these policy making areas, and they're educated. The education system has changed where everything people are taught has changed, and I don't think people maybe young, a generation maybe just below me kind of maybe understand what they've been taught about environment and all sorts of things, that the detrimental effect it has on the Irish way of life for a lot of
Yeah,
people
exactly.
is
And
because look, in
it's
20 years
interesting
time,
that it's
they're
interesting that sorry,
sorry, Paul, go on. No, go ahead.
it's interesting that you mentioned life experience. Roisin and I, we met Adam Dorito in Doonbeg there very, very recently. He'd be our American correspondent here in the Irish Political Roundup, and his expertise would be in the uh, energy sector, so your gas, water, wastewater. And I spoke to him about, say, for example, you wanted to build a small scheme of houses, you know. At the moment, you couldn't because said there's a lack of wastewater treatment plants and stuff like that. And I said, would you build it like a small scale, even modular um, plant just to service those 10 houses? And he said it would be possible. So, is there kind
Yeah.
of like, I mentioned kind of like not thinking outside the box, but you think
Yeah. Oh, look,
there
there's
is
ways
a
and
lack
means.
of,
Like,
there is a lack of a drive to kind of solve the issues that are there.
but I think we've over legislated everything in a way, like because the nature of our political system is you're elected in your county, and every politician at the end of the day wears their county badge when it comes to it. And in reality, the job of when you're elected at all is to be a national legislator and to leave your kind of local stuff behind. But the way it has, the way it has always been has been we do create a parish pump kind of political system here where the TDs become, glorified councillors at national level, and that doesn't do the country any favors as regards actually having proper legislative decision makers who are actually looking at improving legislation, improving policy. They spend too much time having to deal with stuff that councillors probably should be dealing with. You get the nature of politics where it's just like throw as much dirt from one side, the opposition will just go against whatever the government says because they have to. Like that whole idea is just insane. Like Jesus, or surely I can remember days in my younger years where Fine Gael were in opposition for a lot of it, where
Yeah,
they would agree with certain things that they wouldn't block. No, they would, this makes sense, let's go ahead with this. We're not going to block this, we're not going to cause an issue. Whereas now it's like, Jesus, like if the government said they were going to paint the house white, the opposition said no, it has to be black, and they literally they it's mad. Like there's no giant up thinking here at all. And yeah, look, the opposition agenda is kind of concerning, to be honest. I don't think they have our best interests in heart with what they bring up at national level. Like it doesn't really tend to have a whole lot of relevance to a lot of their stuff that goes on, and it can be very frustrating to watch a lot of the time. But look, it's easy to say it here. It's a really, really tough job being a politician, and particularly at national level and the scrutiny that goes along with it. But I think we obviously we have a culture here, and it's and we have great access to our politicians, and we should never lose that. And I don't want people to think that's what I'm advocating for, but to a certain extent, like the lads in Dublin need to kind of disconnect from what they hear from a micro level and local stuff to really focusing on what they can change at national level to allow the local lads to actually achieve what they need to achieve. Like it's gone too centralized. Like local authorities should have a little bit more power to do certain things. Like the councillors on the ground in these areas should have more powers to actually reflect what is needed in their counties instead of national legislation completely hamstringing everything. And like it's similar to agriculture and the EU, little pots of money coming for grants and schemes there that are nice, but sure they're only little things to keep everyone kind of happy. Like it's not the be all and end all.
But
Um,
at the same time, Pat, they might, TDs would say that they've actually been in the ground on their constituency, listening to people's concerns is the best way of finding out what is happening, what is the impact as well. So,
yeah,
are,
well the people
is
feel
there
like
is
count.
there like a is there kind of well, you're probably there's probably a skew from what I'm hearing from you, but do you think if you got rid of that altogether, if there was just solely focused on national issues, that our politics would be very would
Well,
would, would be very different,
yeah,
without a
well, the
doubt.
point I'm trying to make is like, of course, they have to listen to the constituents that elect them, but they should be trying to free up legislation that allows the local authorities and the local representatives that are elected locally to actually have a say in what's going. Like at the moment, it's impossible for local authority to achieve anything. Like to be honest, what did I do as a councillor for 10 years? What control had I over anything? No say in planning, no say in housing. We did a budget every year, of which we had maybe a say in 5% of it. Uh, the roads budget, the discretionary roads budget every year in the municipal level was the only thing we had any kind of say in. Everything else was handed down from national level, and we were like it or lump it. That like, in reality, like we had a few, we had kind of part eight kind of planning things we had our say in, but like our development plan, we went through it for a long time, and we went what we felt as a group of councillors was best for the county, and we're told no, you need to change it. That's not good enough for us at national level. We don't, you're not hitting the targets we want you to hit in wind and solar and whatever else, God knows what. Like, come on, like, at the end of the day, we're the local councillors. We know what the local people, our needs are in a locality. And what we've done is we've taken all that power away and given it to departments in Dublin who don't know, like, the TDs should be trying to pull some of that power back to the councils to actually have a functioning process there. Because what's happening is everything's just tied up in big departments, nothing is getting done, and here we are where we are. Like, genuinely, like, outside of roads and a few potholes, and you can make representation on planning for people, but like at the end of the day, the planner's going to make a call whether you say or not doesn't really matter. Same in housing. It's the biggest myth going that a politician will get you a house. It's your time, it's your time. Like, and politicians live off the back of writing letters to people when they do get a house on the housing list and claiming to be this, that, and the other. Like, yeah, they would have made representations, but at the end of the day, it was that person's time, and that's the way it is. And you know, I, I just think the whole thing has become top heavy, and I think if they could release a lot of that work and powers to local authorities, I think the whole place would
Mm.
be far better.
Because you look at other countries, like they have much more say in things like planning and education, for example. Um, Healthcare, that's another thing.
Yeah.
Policing, you know, massive says on huge sways of issues, and we keep talking about local government reform, but every time we seem to reform it, we seem to make it weaker.
Well, we did, in fairness, we did. The last reform has made like, and again, I wasn't around before it, so I can't say, I can't really comment on what went on before, but like, I really enjoy being a counselor, but my God, it would frustrate the life out of you. Like, you really just, you know, and look, people have expectations from you, and they want you to do certain things, but like you know, you can't do a whole lot. And anything you do may take 3 years to even get off the ground, even get to stage one. Like
Yeah.
it's just it's an extremely frustrating job. And like, you know, you can look politics. You can look at it many different ways. I wasn't really into playing a political game of kind of being at the open of every envelope that was going around the place and being seen and being the, thought, it just wasn't like I didn't want to be that person. I wanted to be I wanted to make sensible decisions that were going to benefit Kilkenny in the long run, whether it was going to cost me or not. And look, some days I bottled it and voted against things that I kind of deep down thought were right, and other days then I did hold my ground and kind of, it's it can be, you can have different mindsets on certain days, and but you're in a political grouping as well who will be, you kind of have to back them up as well in certain times, even though you necessarily mightn't agree with them, and it's a challenging thing to be a politician, and everyone's doing their best, but like. I think we could make life a lot easier for how politicians operate, and actually, give them a bit more say, pretty at local level anyway. And but I suppose, look, it suited government to take all that away and not have to listen to councillors annoying them on certain things or
And
making
when
decisions that they didn't agree with.
and when you look at the national development uh, plan, Pat, there's lots of more. Probably one of the biggest. I think it's over 127 billion over a 4 or 5 year period. Um, I suppose delivery is going to be the big test of this national development plan, and we don't know some of the projects that will be in it. We'll probably know more around budget time, but I suppose from actually any point of view, we'll be hoping to see things like you know the ring road funding actually being secured for the
Hmm.
extension of the ring road, and work's done on the N25 as well.
Yeah, yeah. Look, you would imagine that those should be top ticket items. Like the Ring Road wasn't a million miles away not so long ago, and look, there was a very bad mistake probably made from a local level, from a from a planning perspective that allowed it to kind of fall away. At the end, 25, obviously, I don't have huge experience of it. It's a bit further south than me, but like I know from my colleagues down that neck of the woods when I worked with them, they were very passionate about it, and like, you constantly seeing accidents and people losing their lives. And I know there's been huge campaigns there, and I'm sure like it should be part of the plan, but like, you know, and again, it goes back to the last government, like road building was completely out of the question when the Green Party were in government. That was just not a runner for them. So it will be interesting to see what comes out of this plan. And I suppose the one thing that seems to kind of get through a little easier maybe over the years has been road development building, like because farmers will get paid for their land.
Yeah,
They're generally quite not often quite happy with their prices. Some will maybe have an issue, but there is CPOs in place that if they don't agree, they'll get CPO'd, and it'll be taken anyway, whether you believe and agree with that or not. Um, but yeah, look, hopefully those two things for Kilkenny and other bits and pieces will be there as well. But look, it, unless you really figure out our planning process and the issues that are there, a lot of that stuff is all going to be pie in the sky anyway, and it'll never happen, unfortunately. We're talking about projects here. Ring Road, how long has that been talked about?
oh,
Jesus, 30 years maybe.
the
You look at
first the first phase was built in 1985, and the second phase wasn't built
I can
until
remember. I think we were young lads
2007.
when yeah,
Yeah,
we were youngish lads when the second phase was finished. But the like even thought look at the CBS school, let's say,
yeah,
and even the Central Access scheme, our favorite scheme bridge from many years ago, like. Central Access scheme, I think, was in development plans for 30 or 40 years before it was even, and people nearly kind of forgot about it. The minute then
yeah,
it was actually we actually had a chance to do it, everyone was up in arms, but had been there for years and years, and nobody ever batted an eyelid to it. And then it made it, and same to a certain extent with the roads that have been built there around the CBS, etc. Like all those have been in development plans and pipelines for 20 years or more,
yeah.
and people then kind of forget about them. And when it's amazing. Anyway, look, it's I
Yes.
haven't been out that way since it's open, so I can't really comment on it, um, but look, a fantastic school to have where it is, and great development, because I don't know how they kept going where they were for so long, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. I went to school there, and it was a tight squeeze there at times, but it's a fantastic new school in Kilkenny City. Well, Pat, thanks a million for taking the time to chat to us here on the Irish Political Roundup. It's always great to get your insights on, particularly on things relating to agriculture and farming, and you've given us plenty of food for thought on a whole range of issues this evening. So I'd like to say thank you for taking the time to chat to us here on the Irish Political Roundup. And I'd like to say thank you to our viewers for taking the time to watch us here on the Irish Political Roundup. So for me, Paul Brophy, it's goodbye for now.